All right, team. Mike T. Shamborn here, back from Cult Classic Neo, still talking about Elex. I can't get enough of talking about Elex for some unknown reason. I'm just really excited to play this game, and it's really not an unknown reason. Let's be real. The reason why I'm excited to play Elex and talk about Elex is because I like games that are different from what most pop culture likes. And it's very rare that I get a game that suits my particular taste. Piranha Bytes has been able to do that twice, and I'm hoping they'll be able to catch lightning in a bottle again with Elex. Now, we're talking about the narrative in this particular stretch of videos that I've been doing as of late. We've talked about the Berserkers in Eden, kind of the hippies, the Albs in Zakor. We've talked about them as basically the technologists, the folks that are, seen as, the game appears to be painting them as kind of the bad guys that are trying to bring problems to everybody else. We're going to go to the Outlaws in Tavar next. I'm going to skip the clerics for a specific reason, going back to what we discussed in the overall narrative. Remember, Elex can power machines, Zakor. It can open the door to magic, right? And it can re-sculpt life into new, different forms. So open the door to magic, I believe, is where we're going to have the clerics of Ignadon. I'm not much of a magic player. When I play games, if there's ever a mage faction, I skip it. Like, nope, I don't want to run around with a pole and a dress coat. I want to look like I can kill stuff with a machine gun or a sword. It just, mages have never really appealed to me. But we're going to talk about today, whenever you may be watching, the Outlaws in Tavar, or Tavar. Not quite sure how to pronounce all the stuff in this game, but rocky desert wasteland, Tavar is home to the Outlaws, scavenging the ruins for weapons and equipment. I like these guys already. The Outlaws will worship no god. They will not pledge themselves to the strict laws of the Berserkers or surrender to a life of emotionless conflict with the Zakor. With the meteor came a chance for freedom, choice, a world where anyone can rise to the top. The Outlaws live by the motto that life may be brutal, but it's free and easy. And that's all. And that all shall be rewarded for their strength. So going back to what I talked about in a previous video, here's where I think the answer lies to my question. Will you be able to just kind of shun the factions and do your own thing? And that's what I think. That's why I said they kind of listed three things. This is the fourth thing that's not listed. I think this is the play the game how you want, guys, and this is how I want to play it. Part of me is actually hoping if I side with the Outlaws, I can see the complete game. Like, I can work with the Berserkers for a while and then be like, oh, I'm good. I can work with the guys over in Zakor. I can work with the clerics, and then decide, you know what, I'm going to be an outlaw. I'm going to do swords. I'm going to do guns. I'm going to do jetpacks. I'm going to do whatever I want. And this speaks to me on a personal level because I love freedom. I love the agency to choose my destiny, not have it chosen for me by some faction or some, cult group. I like this, and I like that they're putting this into the game. And so this gives me hope, going back to my discussions about Gothic 3, that one of the options in the game is going to be to fight against all of the factions. That the Outlaws aren't necessarily going to be a faction. They're just somewhat of a brotherhood that believes kind of live and let live. And then we'll be able to basically not have to build our clout in the factions, which is what got tedious in Gothic 3. Because most of what they had you doing to build your clout was boring fetch quests. In some cases, not all. Some of the quests in Gothic 3 are actually very imaginative and use like the terrain for combat extremely well. So I give credit where it's due. But I'm really hoping that the Outlaws are the faction for me, where I'm going to want to invest the bulk of my time. And if I do play it multiple times, what I'll probably do is play all the other three factions first and then kind of save the best for last with the Outlaws. This really gives me hope that we're going back to the Gothic 3 days of Piranha Bytes games, where the games are wildly open. They're not constrained in terms of terrain. Like if you look at Arcania or Gothic 4, whatever you want to call it, or Risen, it's a quote-unquote open world game, but that world is very constrained. Like, think about the difference if you've played two worlds, arguably my favorite RPG of all time, up there with The Witcher 3, Star Ocean 2, Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 2 on Super Nintendo, Secret of Mana. when you look at Risen, even though I enjoyed it a great deal, but if you go back and look at Two Worlds, I'm sorry, and then you play Two Worlds 2. Two Worlds 2 is an improvement over Two Worlds in every technical way you can think of. The magic system is way more advanced, intuitive, and imaginative. The combat and the moving around the world works better. There's more to it. The archery actually has a use in that particular game, and it's actually useful and easy to implement. You go back to Two Worlds 1 and all those it had technical issues with all three. The difference is Two Worlds made you feel like you were actually in the world, and it was wildly open. You could literally, from the beginning of the game, run from the town you start in all the way out to the desert and fight a dragon. You die because the dragons require you to be at a pretty high level to kill them, but you can just run out there and go fight dragons. You're not doing that in Two Worlds 2. It's completely constrained. The world is basically a series of mini maps all tied together. And that's what Arcania did. That's what Risen did. And I don't really know why. Like I said in the previous video, I think the reason why is because they built those games on Xbox 360, and I think some of them were on PlayStation 3 as well. Like Two Worlds, the original Two Worlds, I don't think came to PlayStation 3, but Two Worlds 2 did, I believe. But neither here nor there. Risen, all of these, so like Two Worlds was built for the PC and then it released on Xbox 360 and it was a mess. And I think that most developers realize, like, if we make a huge open world game like this and we don't script it kind of like an Elder Scrolls game, it's not going to run well. Just like Two Worlds had a lot of technical difficulties. It even had technical difficulties on PC, let alone on 360. But Gothic 3, I think, did the same thing. Like, I think Piranha Bytes is like, there's no way we can build Gothic 3 on a console. It's never going to work. So we'll build these smaller, more self-contained Fable-like experiences. And I hate to compare it to Fable, but that's the way the world is set up, not necessarily the gameplay. But what I'm hoping is, now that we've got all this new technology, theoretically PlayStation 4, Xbox One should be able to run Gothic 3, and thus theoretically should be able to run Elex as if it were open world like Gothic 3. And I'm really hoping that's what's going to happen, because the Outlaws in Tavar, I want to be able to go around the whole world and do whatever it is. That was a very long-winded way to get to the point with the Outlaws in Tavar. But you need the backstory, man. That's what we're here for, is to have conversations. I'm really hoping that the Outlaws of Tavar are going to scratch that itch for me. But I'd like to hear what you think. Out of all the factions I've discussed so far, and we have one more to go, we're going to talk about the clerics, the ones I'm least interested in. Which one are you most interested in thus far? And if you want to wait until the clerics video and talk about it there, that's fine. But I'm really, really excited to play the Outlaws of Tavar. I think that's going to be the biggest one that I'm going to have fun with. But I want to know, what do you guys think? How do you plan to align yourself in terms of factions? Are you an outlaw? Are you a berserker? Are you an alb? Or are you a cleric? Which we'll find out in the next video. Remember, subscribe, friends, if you have not already. Keep up with everything we're doing here on the YouTubes. I love you guys and ladies. I'll see you on